What the unbelievable, man. What the are they doing? All three of them, man.
Oh, this is just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
What we're gonna end up with some kind of aerial crash.
Yeah, what the hell is that? What the hell? Improving. That was a joke.
Perez goes 7th fastest, Sebastian Vettel goes 8th fastest, and then Lance Stroll just behind him 9th fastest. Everyone got to the line in time before the checkered flag to start their final flying lap. Kubica can't improve to get out of the bottom 5, but Ocon does, pushes Alonso into the danger zone as Giovinazzi goes 5th fastest. He's finding pace at his home track here. Tsunoda pushes Alonso into the bottom 5, only 14th fastest, and Alonso manages to get himself out. George Russell is out of qualifying in Q1, but Lando Norris goes 3rd fastest overall. Mick Schumacher puts himself ahead of Robert Kubica and ahead of his teammate Nikita Mazepin.
The P16.
Yeah, no worries. I think we've got a good car for tomorrow, so no drama.
Tsunoda's had a lap time deleted. George Russell makes it through, ladies and gentlemen, to Q2 because Yuki Tsunoda had a lap time deleted for exceeding track limits. There's Lewis Hamilton making his way down the pit lane, Max Verstappen behind him, and there is the Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel that is pretty much released into the path of Hamilton's Mercedes.
Unbelievable what they are doing here. Unbelievable.
Bottas crosses the line, can't improve on his overall best so far. Giovinazzi stays 7th, Perez only 8th though. He's in trouble here. Max Verstappen goes 3rd fastest, a little bit closer to the 2 Mercedes. Fernando Alonso is down in 10th at the moment. Esteban Ocon will be next to cross the line, and he's out of qualifying. Sebastian Vettel might just be through though, goes 9th fastest, pushes his teammate Lance Stroll now down into the bottom 5 because Sainz has gone into the top 8. Crossing the line now, Stroll doesn't make it through to Q3, where we have seen him on regular occurrences here at Monza in the past. We're on board with George Russell as Charles Leclerc goes into Q3. Russell can't improve, stays 15th sadly for him. Lando Norris is setting a blistering pace at the moment and goes ahead of Max Verstappen to take 3rd fastest overall. But the 2 Aston Martins in the end both find themselves out of qualifying, along with Alonso, Ocon and Russell. The 2 McLarens, Ricciardo and Norris, matching each other. Hamilton might not need a slipstream from his teammate because he has got rapid pace. Verstappen matching Hamilton through the middle sector and matching Hamilton through the first sector as well. So Bottas to cross the line, and his time is a 1:20.3. That is the provisional target for everyone to aim at. Hamilton will be next to cross the line as he comes out of the parabolica, and once again he's into the 1:19s. Gasly goes 3rd fastest. We're watching now for Verstappen and for the 2 McLarens. Verstappen crosses the line, he's in the 1:19 as well, and a lot closer to Lewis Hamilton than he's managed to get in the first 2 sessions. Carlos Sainz goes 5th fastest, and then Charles Leclerc replaces him, so it's 5th and 6th for Ferrari. Ricciardo goes 3rd fastest for McLaren. Lando Norris then goes just ahead of his teammate by 3/10, but Verstappen has managed. Well, if you're going to try a sprint experiment, where better to try it than here at Monza, where 17 of the fastest 18 races in World Championship history have been run. Today, it's not the Grand Prix distance, it's 100 kilometres or 18 laps to you and me, and we're looking to form the grid for Sunday's Grand Prix, but we're also going to give points out for the top 3 as well. And Max Verstappen, the championship leader, will start 3rd for today's race. It's a free choice of tyres right from the start, and it's going to be an absolute blast around this 3.6-mile circuit. Watch out for the run down to turn 1 as well, 458 metres to your first braking point. They're all going to be arriving at a rate of knots. As I said, 18 laps, 100 kilometres max, and there are shiny medals to hand out to the top 3. At the point system, 3 points for the first place driver, 2 points for second, and and 1 point for third. And the gap between Verstappen in the championship and Hamilton in second is only 3 points. And these points could count towards the end of the season. So it is all to play for in glorious sunshine here in Monza this afternoon. Air temperature 28 degrees, track temperature 43 degrees. 11 corners there on the circuit, 4 to the left and 7 to the right. And there are 2 DRS zones and speeds in excess of 215 miles an hour. So the grid then for the second sprint sees Valtteri Bottas starting not on pole position. Pole will be awarded to the driver that finishes first in this sprint race. Lewis Hamilton is Mercedes' teammate alongside him, and only 900ths of a second separating the two cars yesterday. Max Verstappen has his highest ever grid spot at Monza in third. Lando Norris alongside him in fourth, 200ths behind Verstappen and only 6,000ths ahead of his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. Pierre Gasly starts sixth, and then it's an all-Ferrari row 4. Carlos Sainz, who crashed in FP2, and Charles Leclerc, who's not been feeling at all well today. Sergio Perez will start 9th for Red Bull ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi racing on his home territory. Sebastian Vettel alongside Lance Stroll. Row 6 belongs to Aston Martin. Row 7 belongs to Fernando Alonso and Esteban Ocon, the 2 Alpine drivers, and behind them George Russell 15th for Williams and Nicholas Latifi, his teammate, in 16th. Then on row 9, Yuki Tsunoda for AlphaTauri ahead of Mick Schumacher, who out-qualified Robert Kubica. Kubica standing in for Kimi Raikkonen this weekend as he continues his self-isolation after testing positive for COVID. Nikita Mazepin is 20th on the grid. We have 20 drivers in the sunshine, all waiting to start this race, and everyone you speak to, Martin Brundle, is worried and concerned about the run down to turn 1.
And not surprisingly, really, especially as Zach Brown summed it up on the grid. He said, you know, as you go further down the grid, the rewards are higher for having a bit of a go. But those at the front, we know how perilous the first chicane can be. There are a couple of escape routes, and if you go through those, you've got to filter back in no higher up than you were when you went off. So, but you really don't want to have to take to those escape routes. You've got to get through some big polystyrene bollards or bump your way across the shortcut across the middle of the chicane. It's not where you need to be for your car, especially when you want to be ready for race day in the best shape. But at the same time, it's like a half-hearted tackle. If you do that, you're more likely to get hurt.
Yes.
You've got to go in there, live on your wits, live on your reflexes, take what comes your way and avoid, if you can, it's the usual deal, really hot rear tyres. You've lit them up off the grid with 1,000 horsepower, not such warm front tyres, and long run down there, and then you hit the brakes, which are not going to be optimum either. You won't have full fuel, of course, unlike tomorrow when they will be really laden with fuel. You only need, because it's such a short race, you only need a third of the normal amount of fuel.
The gold medalist from the Tokyo Olympics, Lamont Marcel Jacobs, is here. Lorenzo Pata, who was part of the 4x100 gold medal relay winning team, is also here. If you're going to have a sprint, you might as well have the fastest men in the world ahead of the fastest drivers in the world, and he's posing for a few shots on the grid. Behind them, the tyre blankets are off, and we can tell you the starting tyres, because it's a free choice for the drivers, and Bottas, Hamilton and Verstappen have all opted for the medium tyre. What's interesting, Martin, though, is that Norris and Ricciardo behind them going for the soft tyre, as Fernando Alonso did at the Silverstone sprint, and boy did it pay off for him.
Yes, it gives you a few metres extra grip away from the line with the softer, stickier rubber, and a bit more confidence under braking down into the first chicane. If you get track position, they're obviously hoping they can hang on to those tyres through to the end of, you know, what is, it's a bit like going back to junior racing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just an 18-lapper and go for it. So that's a fascinating choice. Tyres are, of course, completely free for the sprint. They were forced to use, obliged to use the soft tyres for qualifying. That's how it works on these sprint weekends. And therefore, this is all part of it. We want to see different strategies, different concepts, so you can make it work.
Okay, so we've got 2 soft tyres then for Norris and for Ricciardo. Behind them, Gasly, Sainz, Leclerc, Perez and Giovinazzi all on the medium tyre. And then it's Vettel, Stroll, Alonso on the softs again, and Ocon. All those 4 on the soft tyre. Mediums for Russell and Latifi, Tsunoda on the softs, Schumacher and Kubica and Mazepin on the mediums. And the soft tyres, the modelling suggests, will last last 15 laps and then they'll go off quite quickly. So you might have to be managing them a little bit towards the end if you're Norris and Ricciardo. But by that stage, if they get a good getaway, they could be ahead of Verstappen, could possibly be ahead of one of the Mercedes.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue, look, the right strategy is the right strategy, so both McLarens are on that. You do wonder if they wouldn't have been better splitting that, but it's a little bit of a gamble, but that's what this is all about in terms of, you know, getting, it is, as we saw at Silverstone, as soon as those lights go out, the adrenaline's flowing, the competitive nature of the drivers and the teams is really up to full speed, and that's the on-board camera just sitting to the left, just beside the left eye of George Russell, giving you a much more representative feel for the movement, the bumps, the visibility or lack thereof.
So that helmet cam, the view that George Russell has got, hopefully we'll see a bit more of that come the race itself. Don't forget, points for the top three, but it's the finishing positions for those outside the top three that are oh so important, because the higher they can finish in this race, the higher they can start in tomorrow's Grand Prix and give themselves a greater chance of scoring much more points when we go for the traditional 53 laps around the Royal Park here in Monza. And that's the view that Lewis Hamilton has got with his teammate Valtteri Bottas alongside him. Bottas, whatever happens in this sprint, will start the Grand Prix right at the back tomorrow because he's changed his power unit, so he has nothing to lose in any wheel-to-wheel combat.
And we have to assume if Bottas is leading and Hamilton's behind him, Mercedes will want them to switch around to give maximum points to Lewis Hamilton. But meanwhile, Bottas wants to go and win this sprint. Pole on the left-hand side, but if you want to sneak up the inside of the first corner, obviously being on the right-hand side is an advantage, but you're 8 metres behind.
These are nervy moments, not just for those on the grid, but for those on the pit wall and those cheering on their heroes as well. 18 laps, it's the second F1 sprint, and it's lights out, and away we go. Bottas gets away well, as does Max Verstappen. Hamilton's trying to cut him off, and also hamper Lando Norris as well, and he's losing out, is Hamilton here, and Valtteri Bottas leads by Max Verstappen into the first chicane. Then comes Danny Ricciardo, then Lando Norris, Pierre Gasly, and Lewis Hamilton, who's had a bit of a shocker at the start and has gone back 4 places. The two Alpines are battling each other, and there's damage there to Pierre Gasly's AlphaTauri as his front wing comes off and he crashes at the Curva Grande. He'd slowed down quite dramatically, and by the time he hit the barriers, but Gasly is out after winning here 12 months ago.
Going to need a safety car. It isn't deployed now. Safety car deployed. We got a spinner as well at the exit of the second chicane.
That's one of the Alfa Romeos. I think that's Robert Kubica.
Should be. We're hearing Pierre Gasly is okay. He's moving in the car. What happens when the wing goes underneath your front tyres? You're in a toboggan basically, and you're just going to go straight as he did.
I'm okay.
Well, glad that he's okay. The Curva Grande, you're normally approaching it at around about 160 odd miles an hour, but that gravel truck slowed him down quite a lot, Martin.
Yes, he starts 6th on the grid, and he's really had a great start. So he's gone around the out. Oh, look, he's clipped the back of the McLaren, broken his wing. That's where the damage was done. And now the wing, you can see the wing sparking down underneath the left tyre. As he turns in, he's not going to have the front grip. The wing goes underneath the front axle, and then you're onto the gravel. It's not a particularly bad accident, thankfully. It slowed down quite a bit, but it's as soon as that wing goes underneath the car, it lifts the front off the ground, and actually with a slightly more sturdy service road around the outside there, he would have rescued that.
So this is on board with Lewis Hamilton, who sadly for him had a great view of Pierre Gasly going off, but Hamilton started second, as you can see, now down into 5th place, did not get a good getaway at all, was quickly swallowed up by Max Verstappen. That is what spun Robert Kubica around, got tapped by Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, I think that'll go down as a racing incident. Kubica was going around the outside, Tsunoda online. Kubica does manage to get it out of the gravel trap. The track will be a mess there though. And they get ready to see if Tsunoda needs, you can pit stop during the sprint, so if he needs a front wing, they are changing the front wing. It's a dozen seconds normally. Of course, you normally jack the car up using the front wing, so you have to get the car up in the air via a different method, and off he goes. He can then collect up the back of the safety car snake, which is Kubica, actually, the man they connected to. and they're going around Curva Grande now, as you can see for yourself.
With Gasly's car getting towed away by the marshals in the background, we had 2 safety cars and a red flag in the Grand Prix here, won by Pierre Gasly at Monza last year. We are on lap 2 of this sprint qualifier here in 2021, and we've already got 1 safety car, and there you can see just how bad Lewis Hamilton's start was, and he's under pressure, not knowing who to defend against, Martin.
Yeah, he's ended up sort of in no man's land in the middle in the end. Gasly's ahead of him, but it's just there, look, where the McLaren had to get out of the throttle. It was squeezed up by Verstappen, squeezed up against the curves, and it caught Pierre out. There are no brake lights on these cars. It'd be pointless. They slow down so quickly. There is no point in having brake lights on them, and really unlucky there for Pierre Gasly in terms of losing his front wing in the first place, because he found himself a little bit of free air. Yeah, a bit of, in the second part of the phase, some wheel spin. Lewis is now having to move all over the racetrack, as you said, Crofty, not knowing who to defend against next.
And Verstappen thinking, thank you very much, I'll have second place, getting very close to Daniel Ricciardo.
Contact there with the McLaren on the right-hand side as well.
As Lando Norris puts himself into 4th place, that's where Pierre Gasly then goes off to the left, and thankfully okay after crashing into the barriers. We're watching this replay. Now we can see on board with Lando Norris, and he thinks, right, I'll dive down the inside here because there's a nice long run and Hamilton will get out of the way eventually, and he does for it.
Superb bravery there from Lando Norris. Wow. And this is where I believe he had a little bit of contact in the middle of the chicane, just a little bumping of the tyre sidewall with Lewis. So that's the advantage of the soft tyre, gets you off the line. You start 8 metres behind the rival just ahead of you on the grid, but with Lewis's, yeah, Tsunoda couldn't have done.
Kubica, idiot.
He couldn't have done anything about that. He was right up, pinned up against the curb, and Kubica came around the outside of him. So we're once again on board with Pierre Gasly, and look, it just opens up for him. Beautiful. He's got it absolutely right, and is now the McLaren's just going to slow down. Maybe Pierre could have read that a little bit, the squabble going on ahead of him, but unfortunately that's the end of his race effectively.
And that's why everybody gets nervous about the run down to the Rettifilo chicane, and why there is often contact in it, because it's a real pinch point and a real squeeze, and you've got the best part of 450 metres to sort yourself out. George Russell, by the way, lost a few places. He's now down in 17th place as we see Kubica spinning again, and we can go to Sky Race Control. Paul di Resta, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Crofty. Yeah, we were just saying, I mean, the soft tyres, that's what is going to make a difference, and both McLarens getting off the line. But what a ticket this is for them. They're getting extra laps back, you know, it's extra, less stress they're going to have to put on them, and this is where Hamilton's going to have a job because they've got track position on him.
And a word for Lance Stroll, who's made his way up from 12th on the grid to 9th. Sergio Perez dropping down to 10th. Antonio Giovinazzi's made up a couple of places as well to go 8th. And we can see there the marshals just getting rid of the advertising hoardings, and Pierre Gasly, well, 0 to 0 in the space of 12 months here in Monza.
I think I caught towards the back of the grid, George Russell had a poor start and actually got clipped away from the line as well for good measure. So safety car ending, this means that Valtteri Bottas then becomes the safety car effectively. He's got to give it some space, be able to clear into the pit lane, and he can then pin it on the throttle. He'll want to do that as late as possible. He does not want to slipstream Max Verstappen all the way down this very long pit straight.
So including Grand Prix, this is the 6th time we've had a safety car on the opening lap this season. Safety cars disappeared for a while now though, and we can get racing again. And Valtteri Bottas has made the jump, and he's got a very good start. Ahead of Max Verstappen, Daniel Ricciardo in 3rd place. Then comes Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton. Behind Hamilton, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Making a move is Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel a bit further back. And also looking at the Haas and Mick Schumacher. Alonso and Vettel squabbling as they go into that first chicane, and over the bumps goes Fernando Alonso. I don't think there was contact between the two experienced drivers and former winners here, of course, in Monza, but they got very close.
Yeah, and as Paul pointed out, you know, for McLaren now, they've done 2 laps less on those tyres at high speed, so it's working for the Ferraris then line astern. and down in 6th and 7th place, and still people looking up into the second chicane. It's all kicking off at the back of the field.
There goes Fernando Alonso into the first of the Lesmo corners. He has passed Sebastian Vettel, and he's now making his charge as George Russell moves past Mick Schumacher and up into 16th, with Nikita Mazepin running 15th at the moment, as Yuki Tsunoda does get past Robert Kubica, and this time there's no contact.
Yeah, Valtteri Bottas really stepped on it, kind of in a bit of no man's land there, and it caught Max Verstappen out, and he's got a 1.4 second lead already, has Valtteri Bottas flying along there. No drag reduction system, DRS zone for 2 laps after a safety car, and he needs to keep more than a 1 second gap.
Stewards have decided no investigation necessary for that incident with Pierre Gasly or with Yuki Tsunoda as well, so they can put their feet up and enjoy lap 5 of this sprint race. We are nearly at 1/3 distance. It's Valtteri Bottas extending his gap to Max Verstappen in second. Behind him come the 2 McLarens, Ricciardo and Norris, and there is Lance Stroll, and behind him Sergio Perez, 9th and 10th, that particular squabble, and we can head to Sky Race Control. Paul again.
Yeah, Max Verstappen being told pressure's still a bit low, bring them in gently, think about it, Max. So they're obviously thinking they're going to be on edge towards the end, they want to put an attack on.
And what they're nervous about also is putting too much load in the tyres after a safety car when the tyres don't have sufficient pressure. And long straights there, huge centrifugal forces going through the tyres, so stay off the curbs a little bit and just let the tyres recover their pressure and temperature before you lean on them too hard. But of course, I mentioned at the beginning, if Bottas is leading Hamilton, Mercedes would surely swap them around to maximise Hamilton's World Championship points in that really close battle with Max Verstappen. That does not exist at the moment.
No, absolutely no point doing that, because Lewis Hamilton still wouldn't be scoring points, and Valtteri would lose 3. The Alpine is looking a very racy car compared to the Aston Martin after struggling a bit in qualifying, and that's George Russell, started at 15th, now 16th. Balance issues affecting the Williams all weekend long, and he's not particularly gaining on those in front. Nikita Mazepin is the car that we can see in front of us. Into the parabolica we go, on board and through the helmet cam of George Russell.
Aston Martin invested their resources in other things and not a Monza package for one race this year. 2022 cars coming up as well. Aston Martin are carrying too much downforce. They need to be in a DRS train.
And George Russell needs to be ahead of Nikita Mazepin as far as he's concerned into the first chicane, and he has done so. So Russell back up into 15th place as Valtteri Bottas 1.5 seconds clear now of Max Verstappen, and then Daniel Ricciardo a little bit further back than Verstappen. Those soft tyre runners not making the progress they would have expected to the Red Bull. In qualifying, it was very close between McLaren and Red Bull, not so on the track in this sprint race. We're at 3rd distance, 6 laps completed out of 18, and as you can see with Lewis Hamilton, he has got DRS behind Lando Norris. Now, we've seen Hamilton charge down Lando Norris before this season. He's got a lot less time to try and get past the young British driver on this occasion, but at least he's got DRS to help him.
His time will come, won't it, later on in this relatively short race, where we expect the tyres to fade a little bit on the McLarens, but will he be able to clear both of them to score a World Championship point? Let's see what happens in front of him, but a lot of work to do, and it's not as easy to overtake in Monza as you might imagine with these long straights.
And through the parabolica they go, with Hamilton trying to stay in contact before that DRS wing opens, and Charles Leclerc, I think there's a problem with his transponder at the moment because he's dropped to the back, but I can tell you he is still running, and he is not in last place. Charles Leclerc on board with Hamilton as we are then, didn't get the overtake done on Norris, but he's sticking to him, and maybe out of the second Lesmo corner, that's his best place to try and overtake this afternoon, because through the parabolica the McLaren looks quick enough to stay ahead.
When you see the red lights flashing at the back of the cars, they're harvesting, they're recharging their batteries. About 160 horsepower's worth of battery power they have, and you know, they're going to be wanting to use that in attack and defence around various parts of the lap. Lando Norris keeping his head at the moment despite the mighty Merc behind him.
Well, Lewis Hamilton paid tribute to Lando Norris, didn't he? Said he was a fine driver, star of the future, but once again Hamilton is stuck behind Norris, and this is not doing his chances for tomorrow's race any benefit whatsoever. Hamilton, who at Silverstone in the sprint started at the front of the grid and was overtaken by Max Verstappen, today started on the front row, was overtaken by Verstappen, Ricciardo and Norris.
I asked why there's no DRS zone from Ascari down into Parabolica, now called the Alboreto curve. apparently they don't brake going, so there's no mechanism to switch it off, which surprised me somewhat, but it does seem we could even use a DRS down there.
Lando Norris going wide and exceeding track limits at turn 11. One of 3 occasions he's allowed to do that before he gets penalised. We're on board, but Hamilton is gaining, but he's not gaining enough into that Redafilo chicane.
And Lando has very good traction on those tyres out of this chicane. But it's come down to the point it's making, but it's not that easy to overtake, even with the drag reduction system. And of course, Lando there, quite sensibly, didn't bother defending the fresh air, didn't start defending something that he's recognising where the risk is. And he knows Lewis is up for the World Championship. Lewis is not going to take a big, risky lunge.
He's not, but he does need to take the odd risk or two, I think, to try and get past Norris, who's comfortably defending at the moment.
Yeah, he'll push along. He won't be, he'll race hard. I just don't think Lewis will want. There's just no point in him taking something that's less than a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, he'd rather start 5th than at the back. I totally agree with you on that. Behind Hamilton comes Charles Leclerc. Told you he wasn't right at the back of the grid. I think the transponder that monitors his progress around the lap needed a bit of a control or delete, and Leclerc ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz, who crashed in practice and had his car rebuilt before this sprint this afternoon.
Yeah, the Ferrari's going well, actually, aren't they? They're keeping Hamilton inside. Look at Giovinazzi for Alfa Romeo. We think he might be out of that car next year. That'd been 8th place. Lance Stroll, as you said, a fast starter. Perez not having a particularly spectacular weekend for Red Bull. Did his job to get Verstappen up the front by slipstreaming him in qualifying, but the race hasn't worked out so well for Sergio Perez, except here he comes towards Stroll, and that's going to be tight for space, and it's rough across there. He now has to let Stroll go back past.
He left the track, he gained an advantage by getting past Lance Stroll, so I'm sure he'll be told by the Red Bull team to let the Aston Martin get past, but he's not letting the Aston Martin get past on the run to the Della Roggia chicane. They're still going at this, and it's wheel to wheel through that chicane, and Sergio Perez stays ahead before dipping some tyres into the gravel.
It's not actually that smart. He should let him go now before he's told to, because they've got Fernando Alonso in close company. Paul, what can you tell us at race control?
Yeah, I'm just listening. It's very calm on the radio what's going on at the moment, but Verstappen's team telling them very happy where it is, just thinking about the end of this race.
2 seconds, Paul.
Check out, give it back. We'll get him next lap.
So he does give it back into the Ascari chicane, but as you rightly pointed out, Martin, Alonso was waiting to pounce there, and he was very close to Sergio Perez after he let Lance Stroll pass, and this is the reason why he had to give the place back again. Fine going wheel to wheel, but then Perez runs out of racetrack, and you can't just rejoin and stay ahead like that.
No, he should have let him ease through down to Curva Grande and then be ready to pass him again. So now he's made a mistake coming out of the second chicane. The cars are 2 metres wide. You've got 4 metres of car to get through there side by side. There really isn't enough space.
Will he get him on the next lap? As his engineer Hugh Bird said, he's going to go to the left-hand side once again. On the inside, Lance Stroll. Perez under braking a little bit later. Does manage to get it. Fernando Alonso's looking to pounce, but he is kept at bay by Lance Stroll as Perez moves 9th, Stroll 10th, and Fernando Alonso, who we're on board with now, through Curva Grande, waiting in 11th.
Great control there from Sergio Perez and fair racing from Lance Stroll, and then the last man you want you mirrors when you've got over all that is Fernando Alonso on a charge.
Two-time Italian Grand Prix winner of Monza course for Ferrari, Fernando Alonso. He knows what it's like to have success here in Monza as Valtteri Bottas continues to lead. 1.7 seconds, 1.8 seconds the gap between him and Max Verstappen. The battle between Norris and Hamilton is helping Daniel Ricciardo, who's having a bit of a lonely race, but in 3rd place at the moment and scoring a championship point, which would be nice for him, and his race engineer Tom Stallard, who turns 43 today.
If I was ever in battle, I'd want Fernando Alonso alongside me.
Or at least planning things from a secret bunker way back at base. A cunning, fox-like creature that Fernando Alonso is, as we see the two McLaren cars down the main straight with Hamilton. DRS wing wide open, gaining on Lando Norris, but is he gaining enough to make the move into the first chicane? Fernando Alonso might just have DRS behind Lance Stroll, and Stroll could be a little bit vulnerable as that gap opens up in the Alpine car, and we watch Lance Stroll down towards that first chicane. Sebastian Vettel's got DRS as well, and that's helping him stay ahead of the other Alpine of Esteban Ocon. On board now with Lewis Hamilton. Looks a bit closer to Lando Norris into the Della Roggia chicane.
He does indeed. What McLaren could do with here is for Norris to be a little bit closer within the DRS, and of Ricciardo, his teammate, and get his own DRS to help defend against Hamilton, because we're moving into the closing stage of this race.
Yeah, it's only just started, but it's not going to be going for long. That's why it's called the sprint, ladies and gentlemen. And Valtteri Bottas is sprinting away out in front at the moment and enjoying himself in the Monza sunshine. His teammate Lewis Hamilton not having the race that he expected. Ted, down to you.
Yeah, nothing wrong with the car. They're just expecting Mercedes that the McLaren's tyres will drop off. It's their only hope, really. Of course, they were saved, as we were saying earlier, by those laps under the safety car. But that's just what they're doing. If you can't get them now, just see if you can get them in a lap or so. But time is running out. Great race so far from Giovinazzi, isn't it, Crofty? Moved up some places from his qualifying. Good job for Giovinazzi.
Back-to-back Q3 appearances for Giovinazzi. Started 10th and he's running in 8th place. Here comes Hamilton, closer to Lando Norris. Is he close enough? That straight is long, but it's not long enough for Lewis Hamilton, who was on that last lap actually 6/100ths of a second slower than Lando Norris, as Robert Kubica gets past Mick Schumacher right at the rear of the field. One retiree so far, Pierre Gasly, at the third corner, the Curva Grande on the first lap. Hamilton into the next braking zone. There are only 3 braking zones around this circuit, and still he can't get past Lando Norris.
Yeah, Norris looking pretty unflappable, isn't he? He's really not feeling the need to weave, to break the toe, to get too snatchy on the brakes. He's not starting to go offline into a corner to defend against Lewis. He's measuring that very, very well at the moment.
He is, looking way more mature than his 21 years every time he gets into a race car, it has to be said. Lando Norris has occupied 3rd place in the championship for most of this year. Starts this race in 4th after Valtteri Bottas's podium in Zandvoort. Norris only scoring the 1 point.
You can see the harvesting going on with the Mercedes there. Lewis looking very close indeed, on the way into what's now called Alboreto, and a little bit of movement at the back end of the McLaren there under maximum torque demand, but still he's so far behind when it matters in the middle of the pit straight.
Extra speed for Lewis Hamilton, but he needs about another 200 metres of straight, I think, to make that extra speed count, although he will be encouraged by just looking at the rear end of that McLaren through the parabolica.
Yeah, it was certainly stepped out, but remember, of course, the 2 McLarens have the Mercedes power unit in them as well. So they've got exactly the same amount of power under their right foot as Lewis has.
Worth pointing out that whilst this is a very good afternoon for Valtteri Bottas, because he's taken on a 4th power unit of the season, he'll start tomorrow's race right at the back of the grid. So it's turning into an even better afternoon for Max Verstappen, who will start on pole position as it stands at the moment for the 7th of the last 8 Grand Prix.
Yeah, and that's probably why Max is not too stressed about closing that gap. He's got 8 seconds behind him to 9 to Ricciardo now. And as you rightly say, Bottas starts at the back of the field. But we do know, pretty sure, that Verstappen and Hamilton have yet to take engine penalties later on in the season.
Yeah, that could still have quite an influence on the destiny of the championship. As it stands this afternoon, though, that 3-point lead that Max Verstappen had going into this sprint will turn into a 5-point lead and pole position for the Italian Grand Prix. So if you're Max Verstappen, you're going to be giving it a thumbs up at the end of this race. Top speed, 216 miles an hour for Lewis Hamilton. Not enough to get past Lando Norris again. He'll be hoping those tyres start to go off. And this is round about the stage where the predictions said the softs might be struggling a touch. We shall see.
Yeah, we saw how much Lewis's head was moving around in the turbulence, despite those the little serrated screen in front of him that's designed to get rid of some of the turbulence. Paul has further news.
Yeah, Mercedes being very sensitive on the information, asking the drivers to update their steering wheel to give them an idea on how the balance is, so they don't want to give Red Bull any indication of what's going on.
And that was a bit squirrely from Lewis Hamilton as he made his way round the second of the Lesmo corners. We can pick up going through the Ascari chicane. Max Verstappen, the car ahead of him is Valtteri Bottas. There's a 2-second gap at the moment, and we can go down to 10.
The Monza drift, wasn't it, Crofty? But on the other side of the Red Bull pit wall, Sergio Perez's engineers wheeling him past Antonio Giovinazzi. Still the 9th where he started. Perez dropped down early on, got back past Stroll, but just can't find his way past Giovinazzi. This isn't helping them for tomorrow, even though Verstappen is, as you say, going to start the front of the grid.
Let's just watch on board with Lewis Hamilton.
Wow! That's a lot of oversteer in a modern Formula One car. So as he's picked up the throttle, he's a little bit high on the line, but yeah, just lit up the rear tyres.
Just wonder if Lando Norris isn't getting down the straights a little bit of a tow, a slipstream from his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. He's not got the DRS, but is Ricciardo close enough for Norris to benefit?
Yes, definitely. But then, you know, Lewis is getting a double dose of that to an extent. We saw when we had those really good graphics there showing the speed. Lewis was about 10 kilometres per hour faster, some 7 miles an hour faster, but it's not enough to close the gap.
We'll see that Perez and Stroll, that incident at the first chicane is under investigation by the FIA. Perez, he gave the place back. It took him a while. He gave the place back and then retook, obviously, that position at the end of the next lap.
Unless Red Bull think that he pushed him wide or something like that, and they've been on the blower complaining about that, but it looked like fairly robust racing to me.
Perez won't care about that for the moment. He's got Antonio Giovinazzi in his sights. Meanwhile, George Russell has got Nicholas Latifi in his sights, and the gap is about 1.8 seconds between the two Williams drivers, but Russell is catching Latifi at a rate of knots. Might just have time in this sprint to get it, but we're on lap 16 out of 18 and time is running out for Verstappen to close down on Valtteri Bottas and for Lewis Hamilton to close in on Lando Norris, and that is a more desperate, urgent moment for Lewis Hamilton than it is for Verstappen. We're on board now with Verstappen's teammate Sergio Perez. Look at the pace difference between the Red Bull and the Alfa Romeo. Giovinazzi, for the time being, holds on to 8th place.
Yeah, Red Bull, I think, have set their cars up to have a very good top speed in the race, and they certainly look better in race trim than they did in qualifying. They were struggling a little bit in qualifying, and they're very lucky that Verstappen wasn't behind both McLarens, for example, but they got the job done. And a nice clean start from Verstappen, but Bottas has really controlled qualifying and he's controlled the sprint.
Certainly has. Trouble for Valtteri Bottas. Keep referring to it, but just in case you need a reminder, he's got that grid penalty for tomorrow, so he won't be adding to his tally of pole positions, 17 of them so far in Formula One this weekend, and he'll be starting right at the back of the grid.
Go ahead.
Michael, why is that under investigation?
Because the stewards are having a look if you gave the position up A quick enough, and B if there was no lasting advantage of it further, so they're just having a much better look.
It wasn't, it was a whole other straight before we got to a DRS zone and overtook. And also, Michael, we have to have a period of time to make sure that giving the position back is the right thing to do. And as soon as we did that, we gave it up in a very vulnerable way into turn 8.
No problems, thank you. I'll pass that on.
Case for the defence, Jonathan Wheatley, sporting director at Red Bull. Case for the prosecution, well, the intermediate, isn't he? Michael Massey, the race control director.
The lasting advantage, remember, Lewis Hamilton lost the Belgian Grand Prix victory once because he let Kimi through and then immediately passed him into La Source in the same straight. And they said, yeah, you let him through, but you still had an advantage over it.
This is what they're deliberating about.
And Red Bull saying, look, we needed time to think about whether we should give that back or not. Really sure why, if I'm honest, because quite clearly he took the position whilst off the racetrack. But, well, let's see what they come up with. But he certainly should have given that place immediately back.
No further action is what they've come up with. So the race continues. And we haven't got long to go. Ted?
Yeah. That is slightly, I mean, I know Jonathan Wheatley knows that Michael Massey isn't the stewards, doesn't make those decisions, but doesn't stop him having a go, does he? So a committed team manager, I think we can call him, even though it might not be to everybody's taste. But what can we say about Lewis Hamilton? I mean, what can the Mercedes engineers do overnight, apart from burn loads of midnight oil, and figure out how they're going to rescue this weekend, where they were meant to take advantage of the circuit suiting their car, and now stuck behind two McLarens. They're starting the Grand Prix where the big points are, sorry, go on.
I was about to say,
out fifth.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We're on the final lap, Ted. You think we'd only just got going here at Monza, but we're on the final lap of the sprint. What a very fine afternoon it has been for Max Verstappen. He's going to pick up 2 points here. He's going to start tomorrow's race on pole position. Daniel Ricciardo is going to give McLaren their first front row start since Mexico 2018. What a return that is for Daniel Ricciardo. Started 5th, now running 3rd, but they'll all move up a place as Valtteri Bottas goes to the back. But, well, Bottas has done everything he needed to do. Hamilton, sadly, is paying the price for a poor start here.
He is indeed, and I have to say, when you go back to the start, the bravery of Norris heading down towards the green wall that was coming in towards the racetrack, keeping his foot in, and welcome back, Daniel Ricciardo. This is the form we expected.
And welcome back to winning ways for Valtteri Bottas as well in the week, where he leaves Mercedes, and it's announced that he leaves Mercedes. He goes on to take the first of the 2 races here at Monza this weekend. Bottas wins the sprint. Max Verstappen comes home to take second place, and a point for third, and a very fine third for Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren. His teammate Lando Norris next across the line. He's the one that kept Lewis Hamilton at bay. Hamilton started on the front row, comes home to finish 5th. He'll start on the 2nd row for the Italian Grand Prix. Behind them will come the 2 Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Holding off Sergio Perez all the way to the line is Antonio Giovinazzi. He finishes 8th, Perez 9th. Lance Stroll will finish 10th ahead of Alonso, and then Sebastian Vettel, Esteban Ocon, and then Nicholas Latifi, who will just hold off George Russell as they cross the line. Tsunoda, who had the contact with Kubica, recovers to finish 16th.
Good job, Valtteri. So that's Paul.
Copy. Well done, guys.
Yeah, enjoy. Tomorrow's going to be a different story, but enjoy. Great job.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so that counts as a pole. That's good. Yeah, nice one.
It's not about now when Valtteri, to whom it may concern message comes along, but so he'll start at the back, we know, with Lewis. We'll start on the clean side of the... No, he'll start 4th, won't he? So not on the clean side of the grid in that respect, and I think Ferrari will actually be quite satisfied with how that little segment went.
I hate to be a pedant, but it doesn't count as a pole, Valtteri Bottas, and I'll explain why. Pole is the person that starts at the front for a Grand Prix. He starts on pole, and sadly for Valtteri, that won't happen. Pole will be Max Verstappen's, because he will start right at the front, yet again making a habit of pole positions in this season.
Nice job, mate. Nice job, really clean. Yeah, well done, Max. That's pole position for tomorrow.
Yeah, it was good. The start was important.
Yeah, Lewis P4.
See, they all think they've got pole for tomorrow. So George Russell finished just behind his teammate Nicholas Latifi. Just to run down the order: Tsunoda ahead of Mazepin, Kubica ahead of Mick Schumacher, and Pierre Gasly was the man that crashed out. So we had Sergio Perez at Silverstone crash out. Well, today it's the AlphaTauri Pierre Gasly after damaging his front wing at the first chicane.
So who officially gets pole then? Max with the stats won't recognise Bottas as pole, will they?
Like Michael Schumacher when he won qualifying in Monaco in 2012.
That's P3, baby. P3. Nice one. Nice one, guys. Front row tomorrow.
And he's going to be a very competitive figure on the front row tomorrow. Yeah, Schumacher, 2012 Monaco, won qualifying, had a 5-place grid penalty, didn't get pole. Fernando Alonso did, off the top of my head that day.
And McLaren looking good in this race. They're looking very, very good indeed. But you have to say, Max Verstappen has not had an awful lot of luck this year. But that one worked out a treat. He likes sprint racing. They've worked. Lewis Hamilton, I can imagine, is not all that keen on sprints at the moment.
No. See what happens in the Grand Prix tomorrow, but Hamilton has it all to do, starting from the 2nd row. But you could have written it, Martin, couldn't you, before we came here on Thursday. The man released by Mercedes for next season told, thank you very much, Valtteri, but you're going to be going to Alfa Romeo instead. We're going to promote George Russell. And Bottas just reminds them what they're going to be missing. Wins qualifying and then wins the sprint as well.
Yeah, well deserved too, but you know, you've got to look at the last few years, and Mercedes had a decision making. Toto told us yesterday, it's the board of Mercedes-Benz, it's the team, it's the engineers. They collectively have made the decision to put George Russell in it for next year. Let's see who comes up with a great 2022 car, but right now this is all about Monza 2021, and this is an important day for Daniel Ricciardo.
I couldn't agree more. He will start tomorrow, as I said, for his first front row start since Mexico 2018. He has had his struggles with that McLaren car all season long, but it seems the summer break, the reset, might have just done him the world of good.
Well, I'd much rather watch that than free practice 3 that we used to have or something.
I could not agree
I
more.
really would. That's much more interesting. Quali yesterday was great and fascinating, and here we go. We've got a grid.
Well, we've got a grid, and we've got a 5-point gap at the top of the championship now as well. Small margins are going to win or lose this season's World Championship, and Verstappen's picked up a couple more points to extend his lead. It also means that Red Bull are now just 3 points behind Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship, which of course is the championship that pays out all the pounds for points.
I hate those half points from Spa. It looks so messy on the board, doesn't it?
It does a little bit, but that was what the rules stated at the time. The moments of the sprints were on lap 4 with Fernando Alonso, and he has the Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel ahead of him. Coming out to the Della Roggia chicane, Alonso, the wily old fox, didn't he get the moments of the sprint at Silverstone as well? Into the Lesmo we go, and he's ahead of the man that shared a Ferrari seat once upon a time. The man that was at Ferrari, Fernando Alonso, former Ferrari driver, of course, as well. They're talking about the start, the wheel spin that Hamilton was getting.
I couldn't keep up, like 6, 7. I think Ascari also, you look quite stronger.
Yeah, don't Mercedes wish that Bottas was still ahead of Verstappen for tomorrow's race, because they did look strong, and Red Bull didn't look like they had an answer, but because of that extra power units they've added, Valtteri will be well out of the way as far as Max Verstappen's concerned by the time we start tomorrow's race. Giovinazzi's 8th place, by the way, means that he starts 7th again, same as he did at Zandvoort, and I think that's a career equaling best start for a Grand Prix. Leclerc and Sainz also start in the same places that they did at Zandvoort. Hamilton's only started 4th once this season, that was in Austria, when he finished 4th as well. First time he has been outside the top 3 in the hybrid era on the grid here at Monza. Medals being handed out then by Le Mans Marcel Jacobs, the 100-metre Olympic champion. Questions by Davide Valsecchi.
Wonderful performance. We were waiting you a bit long, to be honest, but today, great show. Congratulations.
Grazie Davide. It's been grazie a voi, grazie.
Feel the answers.
Well, it's been a long time to be in this position, so it's good. You know, it's good to be back. Tomorrow is the important one, but we gain a position from Valtteri's problems, so we're on the front row, and that's been a long time. So very happy for that.
And tell me please about tomorrow. Start and first corner can be the key of the race. Are you scared or you're going to be full attack?
Full attack, sicuramente, full attack, and I mean today that's what gave me the chance. You know, a good start, and I thought maybe I get Max in turn 1, but you know he had the inside, so I look forward to tomorrow.
Very well done. Congratulations.
Grazie a tutti. Grazie.
My first medal in my life.
Congratulations, Max. Very well done. Tell me, please, about the race. How is the feeling to be here in Monza, and how is the feeling about tomorrow of starting on pole position?
I mean, first of all, it's amazing, you know, to be here, to see all the Italian fans again. You know, they're incredibly passionate about motorsport in general. So great to see you. And of course, you know, the race. A little bit better than expected. I mean, we had a good start, so we got up to second, and we scored some nice little points, and of course starting on pole for tomorrow. Nevertheless, I mean, they still seem very quick, but I was giving it all, you know, to try and stay close. So it's going to be an interesting battle tomorrow.
And please, about the maximum speed. McLaren is very high level, Mercedes very high level. The straights here are very long. How is it going to be tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say we did trim our car, to have decent top speed. So I'm not too worried about our top speed in the race. But of course, we also know that Mercedes, they have a very good pace also, over the whole lap. But nevertheless, we're going to try and have also a good race tomorrow.
Well done. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Tomorrow, former teammates.
A bit of history there, isn't there, between those two? But yeah, Daniel wants to. Max will be thinking of a World Championship. Daniel will be thinking about getting his season very much underway. But the Red Bull has tuned up quite nicely for the Grand Prix in terms of straight line speed, amount of downforce.
Extremely happy for you. Wonderful race, great start, incredible pace. How is your feeling? Because you deserve it today.
Thank you, I feel good. It feels like it's been a while that I finished first in a race, and unfortunately, I'm starting from the back tomorrow, but the speed is there, so I'll be fighting. I'll be coming as high as I can tomorrow, but yeah, today I enjoy. It was a very clean race, and we had a good pace, and yeah, we're good.
You're doing a wonderful weekend. Tell me please about tomorrow. It's so easy to overtake cars that are slower than you, because today, to be honest, Hamilton struggled a bit. How is it going to be tomorrow for you?
It's not going to be easy, that's for sure. When there's a train of cars with DRS, it's not easy, but obviously strategy-wise, still have free choice of tire, what to start. So let's see if we can do something. But I'll give it all I have. I can promise that.
And are you enjoying this medal? Because that one was the Olympic champion, huh?
Yes, very nice. Very cool.
Are you waiting? We are waiting for you tomorrow on the podium. Well done. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Well, Pierre Gasly won the Grand Prix here at Monza from 10th on the grid last year. Who knows what Valtteri Bottas could do from 20th on the grid. It's double the effort, double the attack. And, well, that was the second sprint. The experiment will continue later on this season. And so far, it's not gone that well for Mercedes, the sprint qualifiers. It's gone very well for Max Verstappen, though. He'll start tomorrow's race at the front. Valtteri Bottas wins and takes a penalty into the Grand Prix. Hamilton will start on the second row.